Andrew Miller, Tarik LaCour from hook'emheadlines.com. We're coming back at y'all today after, I believe this was it the third or fourth full week of spring practice? I believe it was the third. Yeah, just spring break. Um, but yeah, we had
I
second.
don't I don't know why they don't just do spring practice after spring break is over so you don't have to stop. But that's just me. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, because they're holding the spring game, like a week earlier than they did last year. So they could have
Right.
just done that.
I won't sadly I won't be there because it's my daughter's third birthday party. So
Gotcha.
more
Yeah.
important thing there
Yeah.
there are a few things that are more important than Longhorns sports. Your daughter's birthday party is one of them. So
I mean, we got like pages and pages worth of nuggets and practice report stuff. What 2 weeks from yesterday is the spring game, so there's a lot of players that I'm like super excited to see just getting reps like in some form of live game, not live game, but like live scrimmage action. Because like there's so many players that have moved like maybe like an incremental position within like the same group, or you got like Savion Red switching to running back. But we're talking about this, and this is kind of the overarching theme of the video, is like we're looking at updated position battles. You know what, Tarik? I'll start with this. Have you seen this many switches, like in terms of like the distribution of practice reps with Sark before in spring or fall, as we've seen like this spring?
I've not. It's very different. I think that, but I think it's Sark putting people in a place where they can actually compete and maybe actually contribute rather than just sitting in a log jam. So that's one thing. The position battle that has intrigued me the most is between Burke and Finkley, and Burke is starting to take some of those first team reps. That doesn't surprise me because Texas just hasn't had an elite edge rusher since Joseph Osai, and Osai was more of a effort elite edge rusher. So that's what this defense needs if it's going to take the next step forward. I think Burke, due to his length, is perfect for that. It won't shock me at some level if Finkley slides inside and plays like maybe a five technique or something like that, because he can't do it. I mean, he has the stoutness and strength to do it. So why not try it and have him and Burke out there at the same time? So that's one. Alfred Collins obviously is playing well. Byron Murphy, we already knew he was a stud. But I guess the biggest surprise is going to be David Benda holding his own at that will spot, because I don't think any of us thought that was going to happen. It's not that we didn't think Benda didn't have the ability. I mean, we know he's fast, we know he's strong, but
I will say I did a spiel on a video like a month ago. Took about 5 minutes going through why I thought Benda's repositioning at weak side linebacker, just given his like physical traits, could look more overshown-ish.
yeah, I mean, now the key for him is going to be consistent, and he's going to have to make some plays too. So we'll see how that goes, but we're going to be, it seems, a very strong defensive team again, maybe better than last year, which is hard to believe. Actually, it's not hard to believe. I guess you're in year three. You got a lot of very veteran players. You got more team speed. You got more team size. It's starting to look more like a PK defense, so that's good. On the offensive side of the ball, uh, seeing that there's going to be a real battle for 2 and 3. The quarterback spot will be good for them as well as for Quinn. I'm very. This is something I didn't think I was going to say. I'm not. I was pretty sure when the spring started that the starter in the fall at running back was going to be Jonathan Brooks. I'm no longer sure that we know who it's going to be. Just being honest there, and I'm still not sure how the interior offensive line is going to work out. So that's going to be to fall. But I think the biggest thing right now to take away is Burke is taking that next step. So he needs to really keep working on the strength. But don't count Finkley out. I think both will play a lot, and you need lots of rotation to keep the defense fresh. So that'll be good. Of the freshmen, unsurprisingly, Malik Muhammad looks like he's doing really well. And obviously Cedric Baxter's doing pretty well too, and Jonte Cook. It's kind of like the 5 stars are doing well and reminding you this is why we were 5 stars. So that's what you want. You have some depth at all these positions so you can make a deeper run in the Big 12, because as I've said before, as I'm saying now, and as I'll say it into the season, the goal this year is to win the Big 12. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, you hit on a lot of different points there that I do want to follow up on a little bit, but I'll start here. The Ethan Burke thing, like, I think there's a lot of interesting stuff there because, for one, like, I mean, I thought Ethan Burke was more going to challenge Baron Sorrell at the Jack than challenge Justice Finkley at the Buck. I thought that they were going to utilize his length a little bit more out of the 3 tech against Baron Sorrell, but I guess Baron Sorrell's really locked down that Jack spot to the point where they feel good about him there. I mean, I'll say this.
After that TCU game, I don't think Baron Sorrell was going anywhere.
No, I mean, I'm super excited about what he'll do. I mean, along with the emergence of Alfred Collins, and I'll get into Alfred Collins more here in a moment, but I mean, I feel really good about the defensive line. I mean, I felt pretty good about it with, like, Byron Murphy and especially Tavondre Sweat coming back. I mean, that's a really solid 2 to anchor down the interior. But I mean, Alfred Collins' emergence, I think he was a big question mark heading into the offseason. He had good reps last year, at least from a consistency standpoint, the best that he's shown on the 40 so far. But the Ethan Burke thing's interesting because I saw that he was playing some out of the 3 tech on Saturday. I didn't. I know that was like partially a thing last fall, but to see them moving him up to the first team and showing that versatility in him, and apparently, like, was he like a standout on every rep? It doesn't sound like it, but was he like holding his own at least and making some noise there? Of course. I mean, he was able to slide up and get the first team reps. Like, I mean, that's huge for a guy that, had so much growth and still needs to, put on probably 20 more pounds, I would say, because he's at like 255 right now, 6'7". Like, yeah, he's got. I'll ask this: do you think that him getting reps out of the 3 tech and it being such at this point pretty open information that like that means that PK is moving more toward that prototypical 2-4-5 defense that we're trying to show off, that like versatility along the front 7?
That's exactly what I think. And you were talking about how you went on that. Not rant, but discussion about Bend. I think in that same video, I said that we are going to go more to the 2-4-5. I think it makes more sense too, because just the way our defensive linemen are situated, we don't have the kind of like defensive ends. They're more like tackles. Most of these guys that we have, so they fit more the 2-4-5. I think Sweat and Murphy, you have them down as the starting 2, then you'll rotate in with Alfred Collins and others. So that's to keep everybody fresh. And then you can have Finkley and Burke on one side, and you can have Sorrell and Tapp and whoever else on the other side. Have them all.
Voshik. He's been having a good spring.
Right, but I mean, Voshik is a true. I'm always. It's always a big risk putting a true freshman out on any place on the lines. That's a truly a grown man's game. But Voshik is a dominant player, so we'll see what he can do. If he gets the reps, he's obviously earned it. And I was surprised we didn't see Burke more last year. Honestly, I was like, when he got in there, he did well. So I was like, maybe play him more. But that was just me. So yeah, but I do think we're going more to a 2-4-5, and I think that'll be perfect for the Big 12 and as we move into the SEC. But that makes it all the more imperative to make sure we're recruiting top flight defensive linemen, because if you don't have the defensive line and the edge players, that's not the defense to use.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me think that, like, I'm not going to like try to dwell on stuff too much last year, but like, if you got guys that can really plug up the interior and even the edges and, really use their length to, cover any gaps that, maybe a dual threat quarterback. I'm saying that because, like, we had trouble against dual threat quarterbacks last year. And, if you got guys like maybe a more adept Baron Sorrell or maybe a more consistent Baron Sorrell even than what he was last year during kind of a breakout sophomore campaign, and you got maybe like a guy like Ethan Burke or, Finkley taking a step forward on the opposite side, like that's going to be a lot harder to get the edge on Texas. And, I mean, that's a significant development for us, to say the very least. I think for the interior, Sadir Mitchell sounds like he's still going to be a part of the rotation. Have I heard a ton about him in the last couple of weeks? No, but I think that's okay. I think for guys like Sadir Mitchell and Ethan Burke, like the main thing is going to be getting in the weight room during the summer and making sure your body is as good as it can possibly be for the fall. Like I think summer workouts are going to be huge for Texas. I don't think I've ever really thought this much about summer workouts before. So, linebacker is interesting to me just because like I do wonder how far this whole David Benda versus Anthony Hill thing's going to go. Like, is David, are we just doing it so that Benda doesn't want to enter the portal after spring ball, or is he actually making this a competition? I think it's interesting to see. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think Sark is just trying to keep Benda from going into the portal, although I'm sure he hopes that Benda doesn't. Sark is shown to be a very you earn your minutes type of person. So I think that's what's going on there. I will say that Benda, he's been one of those kind of players, like if the light ever comes on, he can be a pretty solid player. And I think the light is finally coming on. So, and the other thing is he's been in this defense for 3 years. Eventually, you're going to look a little better just because you know what to do versus the true freshman who's been, Anthony Hill was playing a little of everything because he was such a dominant high school player. But now you're going to have to make sure you're reading and all these other types of things. But be that as it may, the fact that Benda is showing up but is not, from what we've been hearing and reading, it doesn't sound like Benda's head and shoulders above Anthony Hill. So both of them are going to play a lot. And Leona LaFau will play some as he prepares to take over for Jalen Ford when we go to the SEC. So I think it's a win-win situation. The key for me with Benda is Benda going to be a playmaker. I mean, the defense needs more playmakers. You had a lot of solid players last year, but Ford was a playmaker, and that's what you need.
The secondary is a really good problem to have right now because, we're hearing about Austin Jordan excelling when he's cross-training at Star. He was a guy, I watched him at Denton Ryan. I mean, the guy can play every position in the secondary. He's got the length, he's got the range to do it. For him, it's just about learning the defense.
I'm very happy that Sark is starting to lock down Dallas, getting guys that didn't.
Yeah, for sure. DFW is huge, especially
South. Especially going into the SEC. As we're going into the SEC,
yeah.
We need to lock Texas down more than we have in past years. I mean, you can't completely lock it down. It's too big. There's too many players.
Yeah, that's true.
Texas A&M is going to get their fair share, but Texas needs to be able to really recruit from the Dallas Fort.
I'll say this for the secondary. Like, I think from my understanding with Gavin Holmes, I feel good with him at field corner, at least his ability to cover the deep ball. I think covering the flats would be a little bit more of a question mark for him. The short routes, even some intermediate stuff at Wake Forest, in terms of the reads, the instincts, the closing speed, things like that. Not thrilled about what I've seen on film and the numbers, but like his ability to cover the deep ball is just like a one-on-one corner is unquestioned. I mentioned this stat a million times on the show, and even I mentioned it on the site. There were 7 cornerbacks in the Power 5 last year that were targeted. It was an average depth of target of greater than 17 yards last year. He was the only one to have a coverage grade even above 65. A lot of teams tried to beat him deep. Like they were like, oh, he's an easy target. And he just wasn't. Like he got consistently tested over and over and over again. And if you just want to say that's a product of playing in the SEC, whatever, but it's not like Wake Forest has these like NFL caliber safeties.
Wake Forest is the ACC.
Yeah, sorry, ACC. Yeah,
it's similar to Johnny Barron, the fact that he could blitz off the edge from time to time and also like play really well against tight ends. I think people were always shocked by that because Barron's not a big dude, but he always just finds a way to make a play.
Barron's timing and ability to contest space is unmatched. I literally think by anyone in this defense. I posted this stat on the site the other day. It's insane. He actually led the Big 12 among all defenders in defensive stops on pass plays. It's insane. I mean, to be able to do that playing at nickel and not be like some crazy linebacker that can cover a lot of space in the flats is insane. He had 24. That means that it constituted an unsuccessful play, which is usually a pass play of like fewer than 5 yards. He was on one. He was one-on-one a lot. I don't know. He just didn't miss much. So yeah. Anyway, we're talking about position battles, so I'll let go of like just gushing about Jahdae Barron. But like, yeah, I mean, I feel good. I will say, like, I think we could be in like a 3 or 4 deep corner rotation this fall because I mean, Malik's gonna get reps. Gavin is obviously gonna get reps. Terrence, Ryan Watts is gonna be the starter at boundary. You have 4 corners that you're gonna use. The question is going to be, if Keaton Crawford can emerge enough at safety, because let's be real, more than likely we're going to have some injury issue at safety this fall if Jalen Catalon is going to be a projected starter. If I'm just reading the room, writing on the wall, basing it off his past. But hopefully he stays healthy. We just have a ton of depth there. Let's look at the offensive side of the ball a little bit. You mentioned running back, and you said that you don't think Jonathan Brooks is going to be RB1 come week 1. Do you think it's more going to be RB by committee at the outset?
It's more of I don't know who's going to be the running back.
Okay.
It was before I was sure it was going to be Brooks, and it still very well could be. I mean, he's a very, very gifted player. But when you keep hearing about guys like Savion Red, when you keep hearing about Baxter and things like that, you're wondering, and also add in the fact that Brooks was not overly utilized, even when like Bijan and I sometimes wonder, like, does Sark like not want him to be the number 1 running back? Because sometimes you could almost read it that way. It's like because the guy just always makes plays, but he's not exactly the Sark fit of running back. Sark likes the bigger one-cut guy. Brooks is not that. Brooks is a great player. He's not the Najee Harris, Buck Allen type of guy that he typically likes.
He seems more like that shiftier, like tech sort of running back that you usually get that can, be a dump off in the flats and that can make some guys miss on a draw play. And it's interesting. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but yeah,
No, so I think that's a true competition. But I mean, for the most part on offense, I don't think there really are any competitions. We know who's going to start receiver. We know who's going to start, not a running back, but a quarterback. Most of the offensive line positions are basically what they're going to be. So the question is just, are more people going to get more playing time than perhaps we thought? Like, I think DeAndre Moore and Jonte Cook will play some. Obviously, Casey Kane is still going to play, I think, even though A.D. Mitchell will be the outside receiver there. Xavier Worthy obviously will be the starter there. So you kind of know what you have. Now the question is, can these guys just take the next step? Can they be more consistent? With Quinn, with the fact that people are just saying he's consistent, he's not making mistakes, I think that's exactly what you want to hear. What you want is for him to have the kind of rise, not in the sense of, because if you looked at Joe Burrow, not saying that Quinn Ewers is Joe Burrow, but what Joe Burrow does is he just doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He just manages it perfectly. He can remind people who can remember back this far with Joe Montana. Joe Montana didn't have all the great measurables, but he just knew when to make the right reads and keep the ball with his team. And if Quinn Ewers can do that, just play the point guard, I think that Texas can have a very explosive offense next year. Because the thing you'll watch in every Texas game, if you do a rewatch, which I've done several now, is you keep seeing all these plays that you're just like, oh, if he just had thrown it just a little quicker, or if he made that read, or of course we already know if the wide receiver had just not dropped the ball, that would, that's an entirely different game you're having. So, yeah.
I will say the drops so far this spring have been a little discouraging. Heard a little too much about that Worthy's still having those issues. A.D. Mitchell has settled in, it sounds like, quite nicely, which is extremely positive to hear how fast his ability is translated. Do you feel like for the interior offensive line that you've seen enough for there to be any movement there? I mean, I feel like Hayden Connor, as much as I'll be honest, as much as I have seen at least enough consistency from Hayden Connor on the field in the last 2 years, I don't know. I mean, I think you could still move Cam Williams or Christian Jones to the interior. there's enough at offensive tackle. Like you could, DJ Campbell could be the first team along with Cole Hudson. Like I feel like there's still some movement there.
Those battles are going to carry on into the fall.
Yeah,
I think. First of all, I don't know if Flood can really make the calls he wants to make yet because he doesn't know if he has everyone around to really evaluate who the best five are. And then once you have the best five, where do I put the best five? You're going to have Kelvin Banks at left tackle. After that, and I'll say Christian Jones at right tackle, though you can move him in.
Yeah.
But after that, Jake Majors obviously has been playing for a very long time, knows what he's doing. But if he's still getting pushed around, keep putting defensive tackles in zero technique and they keep pushing him back, there's probably going to have to some adjustments going to be made there. So yeah, so that I think will go into the fall and we'll see what happens there.
It does sound like the interior offensive line in team drills has been playing really narrow gaps to minimize some of the weaknesses that Jake Majors could bring, just again in terms of the lack of length and just size and body moving ability, to put it pretty straightforward. So I'm interested to see if Connor Robertson maybe could push him at all, but I think that's the only thing that could change there at center. So what do you want to see from Texas before the spring game?
I want to see some more consistency out of the wide receivers, less drops. I want to see I want to see, does Benda keep stretching out the lead between himself and Anthony Hill, or does Anthony Hill close the gap? If Anthony Hill's more closing the gap towards the spring, I think at that point Jeff Choate might want to say, okay, maybe we just want to assume that Anthony Hill's going to be the starter week one and getting him more reps because he's going to make mistakes and things like that. So kind of eliminate that. I'd like to see kind of also another edge kind of emerge alongside Burke and Finkley. I'd like to see Tapp, see what he can do, see if Vosick is coming along. And I guess finally, I want to keep hearing that Quinn Ewers is continuing to be solid because, you know, this is a really good defense. You're not going to look, if Bryce Young struggled against this defense, then maybe you should just accept even pretty good quarterbacks are going to struggle. So that's, but I want to keep hearing that he's doing consistently well. He's making plays and that he's ready to take that next step. Because if Quinn Ewers takes that next step and is consistent, I think there's a very good chance Texas will win the Big 12 because they were very, very close last year.
Yeah, they were on a number of occasions. Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head for a couple of them. I was going to mention edge. I mean, yeah, that's just such a difference maker for Texas heading into the fall, having that impact edge rusher. But I'll say tight ends. I would like to see someone else emerge besides JT Sanders. You know, Gunnar Helm, it sounds like the hands haven't been great this spring. Juan Davis, I've heard bits and pieces, but, you know, I'd like to see a second tight end. We have enough wide receivers where I feel like, you know, we're good in the passing game, but it'd still be nice to have that second guy.
Yeah.
I think that would be the main thing. You got to have more than just JT Sanders, I think. On defense, yeah, I'll echo your edge sentiment. But so far, I've been happy this spring, and you know, I think the direction the program's heading is pretty solid. There's a lot of underclassmen that are standing out so far, so can't complain about that. But anything else you got?
Nope. Just ready to have these last 2 weeks of practice and see a good spring game.
Yeah, no, fully agreed. Well, so, you know, I wanted to mention here, I did in one of the basketball videos that we'll have going up soon, and then me and Shane did a baseball video on a Friday night. But, you know, we just reached 500 subscribers, so thank you all for, you know, riding with us so far. It's been, you know, a lot of growth for the channel in a pretty short time. We've been doing this show now since just last fall, and production quality, largely thanks to me, was not great at the outset, but tried to improve that from here on out. And, you know, Shane had mentioned doing a mailbag episode eventually. I think, you know, taking some Twitter questions and things like that whenever I have posted something like that, unless it was after a loss, has been pretty responsive. So, you know, hopefully we can.
Yeah, let's try to do those once a month, a mailbag episode.
Yeah. Get a little bit more dialogue going instead of just responding to people in the comments just for me. So, yeah, I think we'll come back with the spring game preview here pretty soon and probably talk more baseball because, you know, God knows, it was just a couple of days ago. We had the longest winning streak in the nation. Still looking like one of the best teams in the country right now, I think.
Yep, I think our World Series streak should continue. Getting there.
Hopefully, yeah. But I mean, it's looking much better than it did like even just a month ago. So,
well, people were overreacting. I was like, it's a young team.
Yeah.
Young teams take time to gel. It's like people don't watch the other sports teams and realize, like, yeah, if it's a young team, it usually doesn't come out guns blazing all the time. You can see a lot of talent, but you're like, yeah, this person needs to play a little while longer. So,
yeah, absolutely. No, but excited about the direction for sports right now in general. But anyway, yeah, for Tarik LaCour, Andrew Miller, lookemheadlines.com. That's pretty much it. Welcome.
Okay.